Alone in the Taiga. There are two ways to get to those protected areas: fly to Norilsk, then to Dudinka, then by helicopter to the village of Tukhart, then by hunting trails, sometimes by motorboat along the river, and sometimes on foot for several days of travel. Or, if you are an unusual guest, rent an all-terrain vehicle and rush from Norilsk directly. No matter which route you choose, you will still have to wander through the Taiga for several days. And in that area it is deadly, wild. A seemingly safe place may turn out to be a swamp, so it is stupid to go there without a guide. And it is dangerous to be alone, even with all-terrain vehicles, 300 kilometers from the nearest village. Although there is almost nothing to be afraid of in the Taiga. Animals, if you do not intrude on their lair, prefer to stay away, and people rarely appear in those parts. I myself have only been there by chance. First, we walked along the route with a drilling team, reconnoitred, so to speak, the road to the deposit. And then I talked one local old-timer, Grandfather Isai, from the Nganasan people, the indigenous inhabitants of this wild land, into going on a hunting trip. Grandfather refused for a long time, muttering all sorts of nonsense about hisko evil animals, however, but for a couple of bottles of white vodka, he agreed to become my guide. Although it is difficult to judge who helped whom, the grandfather was old and frail in appearance, but he knew the surrounding forests perfectly. We got ready quickly. We went out in a motorboat, walked along the river to the south for a day, then walked for a long time through the channels. In the end, we left the boat on a hillock, dragged it so that the current would not wash it away, and went on foot further west into the swamps. A wonderful hunt. The animal is not afraid, just load your gun and shoot at it. So by the end of the second day, we had collected a decent amount of trophies and decided to return. Old man Isai got worried and suggested not to spend the night in the forest anymore, but to go to the motorboat without stopping or resting. It was unclear where the old devil got his strength from. I was at the limit of my capabilities. Then I involuntarily believed the men's tales that Isai was the last Nganasan shaman and could do what others could not. But I didn't dwell on it then. I decided to simply agree, although man proposes and the Taiga disposes. I didn't understand what had happened, but we didn't make it to the boat before dark. Grandpa was almost hysterical. He was yelling at me in a language other than Russian, swearing at the vodka he had agreed to take me here for, and he was almost crying. I felt ashamed. I beg you to forgive me. And he just snorted and looked around. Suddenly he grabbed me by the belt and with such inhuman strength dragged me somewhere behind him. It felt like an hour had passed. When the forest parted, we came out to an abandoned hut. Hunters build such huts to hide from bad weather, snowstorms. A small hut made of solid timber. Instead of windows, there were loopholes. The door was small and low. It was dry and warm inside. Isai literally dragged me inside and began feverishly locking the door. He piled everything that was inside the hut against it and plugged the loopholes with rags. I look at all this and go stupid silently. The shaman doesn't say a word and is clearly preparing for something. It was already dark when Isai sat down opposite me to catch his breath and lit a single torch to light a cigarette. He smokes and looks into my eyes. And I stare into his eyes, thinking, Isai is testing me for some reason. It would be better if you were afraid sometimes, though, so you wouldn't end up in such a mess, Sonia. Not another word. Time passes, nothing happens. The old man sits hugging his carbine. I begin to doze off. After all, stress and fatigue have taken their toll. And through my sleep I hear a knock on the roof, as if a child ran by. The steps are brisk and light, but definitely heavier than a squirrel or a marten. And then a whistle came from behind the door and another knock, but louder and with pressure on the door. Sleep vanished. And Isai put his finger to his lips, shaking himself and showing me, like, sit quietly. And so on for half the night. Creaking, knocking, whistle, an uncomfortable feeling, as if they were trying to scratch you out of your shell. Then everything suddenly stopped. But we still didn't fall asleep. And during the day we immediately went out to the boat. It was a kilometer from the place where we spent the night. I'm not interested in what came to us at night, because I don't want to go there anymore.